What is going on, snipers? Naeem Al-Obeidi here. Pop the LaCroix today, our sparkling water, and dive into our daily cryptocurrency content and analytics for today. We're going to be looking at a Bitcoin technical analysis. Of course, we are finding support once again on this 50-day moving average. I want to talk about how we breached this 0.38 Fibonacci retracement level and what that might mean for Bitcoin in the short term as well as in the long term. And we're also going to dive into 3 things that I'm currently doing right now during this market correction and what I typically do during most market corrections, because you have to understand this is more so an opportunity than anything, and we're going to talk about why. So let's first dive into our Bitcoin technical analysis. You can see we've breached this Fibonacci retracement level already, and this is an area where we've in the past respected that support line and has seen some sort of market support, but then we went ahead and breached that, now heading below that 50-day moving average. In my opinion, we are still headed to the next known support level, which is around that 7,700 level, around that 7,800 level as well. And I think that's going to be the optimum area for us to get some really solid positions here for Bitcoin. So looking at Bitcoin's analysis on the 1 hour, you can see we're seeing a little bit of a different scenario with this wedge forming. If we were to break this wedge positive, in my opinion, that could also be pretty positive for Bitcoin, knowing that we're building some accumulation along these areas. But I highly doubt that that's going to happen based on this 1-day chart. You can see we're right along that 40 right now, and in order for us to maintain these levels and expect to go any higher, we're going to have to see support along this support level of 40. If not, and we break below that, anything below that 39 or 38, in my opinion, will take us beyond that level, below 30 in RSI, which will put us in an oversold level, allowing us to get these prices at these lower levels. So it's really a twilight zone right now with Bitcoin, because if you also look at the MACD, you can see we're starting to approach this known support level. But in my opinion, for us to breach this, it wouldn't be too big of a deal, because we'd still find a little bit of that positive divergence if we were to alter the angle of this, being that there's only 2 solid points right now. So in my opinion, there's still a little bit of potential downside before we see any sort of upside. But the majority of the market in regards to fundamental sentiment is positive. If we were to look at some articles that were posted today, you can see Jack Dorsey, the Twitter CEO, saying here the internet deserves a native currency like Bitcoin. If you don't know, he's actually attending, or was attending, Consensus 2018 that occurred in New York City this past weekend. And you can see here he says in his panel, the internet deserves a native currency, and it will have a native currency. I hope it will be Bitcoin. If you don't know, he actually owns Square, which is a payment processor that allows you to purchase Bitcoin now using the Cash app on your iPhone or Android device. So he's already got his stake in the Bitcoin game. But I wanted to talk about something that I think is really going to change the fundamentals and the market in a whole nother dimension, and that's the Lightning Network. Understand that the biggest flaw for Bitcoin right now is the amount of transactions that can be created within a set specific amount of time. And understand the Lightning Network is a solution to this, and I believe it's the solution that's going to take Bitcoin to the next level. You can see here with this article, they say here with this Lightning Network that if we were to scroll down here, sorry, I'm having some trouble with my mouse here. I got to use my trackpad. Man, those trackpads, they get pretty hot if you use them often with all that friction. But you can see here, let me get this back up and running, sorry, with this article, how they talk about the Lightning Network and the progress that it's made over the past couple of weeks, and it's been doing very well. I mean, you can see transactions here are increasing exponentially, and it's allowing the Lightning Network to really prosper in a way that no one really imagined. It was something that people talked about a lot, but they never really took much action towards. And it doesn't seem like this article is trying to work with me here, but I will leave the link in the description below. But you can see this other article here talking about Bitcoin becoming a store of value for the Iranians that are hit by hyperinflation. If you don't know, over the weekend, the Iranian currency had seen a hyperinflation because of the fact that the nuclear deal was discontinued with the USA. But you can see here, in the past, when corrupt governments devalued their local currency or seized assets from citizens, investors ran to the US dollar or gold. Today, many are moving into cryptocurrencies where their money sits on a global distributed ledger that no central bank or government can touch. And that's really the benefit of Bitcoin and why it's such a prominent storage of value right now. It's the fact that you can't really touch Bitcoin if you're not the actual owner of your private keys, right? There are regulations around it. There are countries trying to ban it or if not accept it. But at the end of the day, if you have your Bitcoin stored in a hardware wallet, no one can really touch that. So it's pretty interesting to see that sort of market sentiment coming into fruition. And you can see Bitcoin continuing to move below that 50-day moving average. So in my opinion, there is no doubt that we're most likely going to see lower levels before seeing any highs. And there's just such a lack of volume right now. And if you look at this RSI, like I said, we're starting to breach that 40, which has been that support level that we've been watching over the past couple of weeks. So let's see if we've got any good questions here in our live audience. NYC Urbanista says, always great to catch Naeem live. Thank you. Poolville02 says, instead of the lame, stupid bets, how about 500 likes because Naeem does great work and has started a professional crypto community. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, if you guys are not on our Discord, I highly recommend getting on our Discord. It's a free resource and the link is in the description. But we're actually doing some really cool stuff on that Discord. We've actually revamped the whole Discord into this community in which you're not going to find anything but value. We have all of these technical analysts that are posting daily in these different chats, and I highly recommend each and every one of you go on here and start utilizing these resources. You can see we have these areas here. Like today, we had a ton of premium technical analysis posted. We had a LISC analysis. We had one for XLM. We had one today for BAT. If you go to the market health updates, we have daily health updates of the market so that you don't necessarily have to, go through a ton of YouTube videos or live streams to find out what's going on in the market. You can literally just have your Discord on your phone while you're at work and just pull up a market update and watch a 6-minute update and know exactly what's happening in the market. So that's kind of what our goal is with that. Hopefully you guys are enjoying that. Let's see. Too Much Tequila says, check out PNUS, please. I've never heard of that ticker symbol, so I don't know if that's a popular one that people would want to look at. Adam Shalomi says, thanks, Naeem. You're very welcome. For what? Mr. JP says, TRX Technical Analysis before next week. Why don't we take a look at TRX? Because TRX has been making some movements over the past couple of weeks. And I hear a lot of analysts saying that we're most likely going to break bullish soon. But it's all about hitting that 50-day moving average, in my opinion. You can see with this EMA, this green line right here representing the exponential moving average, we're still below that EMA. We're kind of on top of it, but I would still consider that below, knowing that we're in this red candlestick here for the daily. And also knowing that Tron in the past has found support along that 50-day moving average after any sort of exuberant levels. I think that 50-day moving average is once again going to act as support for Tron. And you can see we still have some downside to go with this MACD fast length. So in my opinion, we still have a little bit of further downside left for Tron before seeing any sort of upside. And that also correlates with our topic today, which is what do you do in a market that's in this corrective phase? And what I'll tell you right now is I like to use this opportunity to buy into my altcoins. Number one, I'm watching market dominance. So understand market dominance plays a huge factor in this market. And if you were to look at this market dominance chart and you look at what happened in 2017 when altcoins really started to see their rally, you can see here the altcoins depicted here in silver. We had this huge uptick and then we saw a little bit of horizontal action before seeing the next rise in price. And you can actually go back to this previous time here around the 2016 period in time where we saw altcoins starting to rise, went horizontal, and then went parabolic immediately after that, almost doubling its dominance. And you can see we're kind of seeing the same pattern here where altcoins are starting to go up and now they're starting to go down a little bit, most likely going to go sideways in my opinion, not completely down. And then sooner or later we're going to see an exuberance of altcoin dominance as more people are starting to buy into Ethereum to invest into these ICOs that are occurring on the ERC20 platform. So what I mean by that is if you look at Ethereum's dominance as well, it's been on this steady increase here. Over the past couple of weeks, you can see we went from 14% all the way to around 18%, gaining 4% dominance. And why that's important is because of the fact that Ethereum has really been the best hedge against Bitcoin during this market correction. So if we were to pull up Ethereum here, you can see we've been on this steady uptrend, but at the same time, like we talked about yesterday, these uptrends at these oversold levels in regards to the RSI only typically last about 30 days. You can see this one lasting right there about 31 days, and then this one here already about 28 days in its uptick. And in that regard, in my opinion, sooner or later we're going to see some corrective price action and a possible low occur here where we can get some better prices for Ethereum before continuing this rally up. And what I like about Ethereum right now is the fact that it's doing it with minimal volume on the 1 day, but at the same time, if you were to actually go into the volume, you can see we've got the majority of buyers in the market, not necessarily any sellers, allowing it to go up. And that's probably because of investors getting into Ethereum to plan for investing into other ICOs as the ICOs start to come out on the ERC20 platform, because tons of ICOs are coming out. If you listen to the Binance CEO, I think he said over 6,000 coins right now are waiting to be listed on Binance. So somebody says 100 likes, Naeem does 10 jumping jacks, hit the likes. You guys are so into those likes now. That is hilarious. Let's see, Mike Serasano says EOS has war chest of ETH, big sell-off coming after EOS mainnet launch. So that could also bring this RSI down, right? It would also coincide with our technical analysis, knowing that the RSI doesn't typically stay at these levels for over 30 days. When EOS's mainnet comes out, and let's say it's extremely successful and it, you know, is a platform that supersedes Ethereum in a lot of different ways, which is what it's expected to do in a lot of cases, then we may see a lot of these ICOs transition from the Ethereum platform to EOS, and that could definitely take liquidity away from Ethereum into EOS. So there's a high possibility for that. But in my opinion, I would say that I expect new liquidity to come into this market to bring EOS to these higher levels, not necessarily liquidity that's going to be taken away from Ethereum. Because if you remember when Ripple went parabolic from like the top 8 to the top 3, it wasn't necessarily taking liquidity away from other coins. It was just more liquidity coming into Ripple from new cash investors, right? So I would say that would see something similar to that in this regard as well, because just because you're on the Ethereum platform, you transition to EOS doesn't mean that you're bringing down the value of Ethereum, right? The Ethereum token is used to raise funds and raise money for ICOs, not necessarily to maintain ICOs, right? But to a certain regard, it does have its features that allow it to create what we call gas. And we can go more into depth with that, but there's no necessity for that. Now you guys are using some crazy bets here. You're saying 80 likes and he hits forehead of the microphone. You guys are ridiculous. If you want something to happen, we got to hit 300 likes. That's really where we can get some bets going. Nothing under 100 likes. Are you kidding me? We'll get 100 likes easy. Somebody says VeChain, Mike the Bomb. Let's pull up VEN. We haven't looked at VEN in quite some time, and I think it'd be interesting to see VEN. Wow, look at that. So we're heading towards these known support levels in regards to RSI around 47, and it looks to be that VEN has held itself quite well during this correction, starting to see a little bit of some downside. In my opinion, because we're so close to this 50-day moving average and we've bounced on top of it in the past, knowing that we just went below this EMA and we saw this huge amount of sell-off with VEN, I think that we should allow this to go ahead and retrace back down to that 50-day moving average. And once again, another thing that I do in regards to a corrective phase of the market, right? Number 2 is I like to get positions into coins that I am extremely bullish on for the long term, right? Understand that this is an opportunity for us to get these prices at these lower levels before we see another exuberant rally. And if you pull up EOS, for example, right? EOS is doing something very similar to VEN, where it's starting to correct down to that 50-day moving average. And you can see we're starting to see a little bit of some green candles close on the 1 day here, but nothing significant enough to say that we're not going to see any further downside for EOS. You can see the MACD still has some room to go. And you can also see here with the RSI, we're nowhere near these oversold levels. We're still in that neutral zone. So I would still deem EOS, for example, a coin that could be a potential long-term hold. And for you to initiate position now would be the smartest thing, in my opinion. Another trend line that EOS is following here, you can see we've got an ascending support line. So don't take that into, don't allow that ascending support line to fool you. It's a very strong support line, and it also goes and coincides with that 50-day moving average. So I really wouldn't be surprised for EOS to go down just a little bit more for us to find support along this ascending support line, and that would also coincide with that 50-day moving average. So Investors of crypto in the house says Naeem is the best crypto YouTuber, boss. I wouldn't say I'm the best. I just provide a certain type of value, you know, and I strive to provide the most amount of value. And I think that we're doing that in our Discord. You know, recently our Discord has just been such a huge success. I mean, our market health updates in general are getting tons of engagement. And we're really finding a lot more success. Instead of doing trend signals that last 24 hours, we are finding a ton of success with these premium technical analysis charts where we're actually going into these coins, looking at the fundamentals and the technicals and saying, all right, this is this coin on the weekly chart, and this is most likely the best opportunity to get in on this and hold your holdings for the next 2 to 3 weeks in order to see gains, right? Because what's the point of trading daily when you can trade every now and then, right? Since most of you have work and have other obligations in your life, sometimes it's just hard to constantly be in the market. So using our premium technical analysis channel, we're allowing you guys to set up these trades that take weeks upon weeks to fill, but are very strong trades. Like, for example, you know, recently we looked at Counterparty, being the fact that Counterparty was sitting at these known accumulation zones on the weekly. And if we actually pull up this weekly chart, you can see exactly what we're talking about here. Every time we've been at these lower levels, you can see these fractal patterns that just continue to repeat themselves. And it looks like right now we're at the bottom of this fractal pattern that's forming. So if we were to draw this fractal pattern out, you can see 1, 2, 3, and you can see another one forming. So it's just almost like this obvious opportunity, this obvious trading opportunity that's there for you. And we're finding a lot more success with calls like this, because if you were to put in a position now and wait, you know, a couple of weeks, when Counterparty goes up to these higher levels, I would say the most reasonable take profit zone would be right around the 332,000 Satoshi mark, whereas right now we're only at 179,000 Satoshi. So that's almost a doubling in your Satoshi valuations. So pretty interesting there. We just got a super chat here from Dave Christian saying, can you chart OCN, please? Have we found the bottom? Let's check out OCN. We appreciate that super chat here. It doesn't seem like OCN is actually pulling up on TradingView. Maybe there isn't a ticker symbol for it on TradingView, so I do apologize. I guess we can't check that out. But what we will do is go over to XRP BTC and talk about Ripple. I know a lot of you guys have asked about Ripple in the past, and what I'll tell you right now is Ripple is showing a lack of volume. It's actually going down quite a bit in volume. And not only that, if we actually pull up this daily chart here, you can see here we are still fighting across that EMA as well as that 50-day moving average. We're trying to get above that EMA right now, and as soon as we can get above that EMA, I think that would be the best opportunity for Ripple. But right now that we're seeing the 50-day and the EMA converge, it's kind of this twilight zone at this point in which we may see this EMA push Ripple down even further below that 50-day moving average before seeing any significant highs. If you look at this MACD, we recently saw this exuberance in buyers, and this was really after even that December rally. And in my opinion, we still have a little bit of ways to go to see more sellers come into this market for Ripple before we see any sort of higher upside. So hopefully that will help out a little bit. Matthew says, do you really think you can base your TA on charts repeating recent activities? How do you validate that? Well, it's because the history of a chart can predict the future of a chart, Matthew, and especially if a coin has intrinsic value. Like Counterparty in this example is a project that I'm very bullish on. You know, it's a project that we're soon going to release a coin report on, and in my opinion, it is valid to look at past patterns to determine future patterns, right? It happens all the time. I mean, in the market, it's predictable. If you read Ray Dalio's book Principles, I highly recommend you get on that book. It will talk about how the best way to really look at a market and predict what is going to happen is by looking at the history of the market and seeing what type of patterns have played out in the past, because those patterns can most likely, and if not will most likely, play itself out in the future, knowing that the market is all based upon psychology. So the psychological factors of the market include, you know, for example, if a asset class reaches this level, for example, people usually see it as a smart buy, and therefore every time it hits that level, it goes up, and that's called an accumulation zone, right? So we apply the technical analysis phraseology to it, but at the end of the day, it's all psychology, right? It's market sentiment and how people feel about the market and how they want to invest in the market. So hopefully that helps out a little bit. Somebody says, Naeem, you drinking La Croix today? Yes, I am. Shout out to LaCroix. Man, we got to get a sponsorship established or something. Johan has a good question here. He says, I find it hard to decide how to store many different cryptos. Some can be on a ledger, but many can't. How do you manage many different cryptos for long-term storage? Well, the best thing to do is either use a paper wallet or a hardware wallet if you want to hold something for the long term. And that kind of coincides with the third thing that I like to, the number three, I guess tip, or what I would do in this type of market, in this corrective phase, is I would start setting up proper allocations for different asset classes, right? This is the perfect time to really draw it out, draw out a circle chart of your investable capital and start splitting your investable capital between the coins that you feel you want to allocate specific capital to, and that's called diversification, right? It's asset allocation, and asset allocation is one of the most fundamental rules of investing, especially for the long term. So if you believe this market is going to see exuberance, if you believe in this whole revolution, then it's a perfect time to start diversifying your capital and allocating your assets properly. So Jonathan Hines says, could you review OST? Let's check out OST Simple Token and see what's popping here with Simple Token. We haven't looked at OST for quite a while, but you can see we've seen quite the consolidation here. This is a chart that I really like. I'm really glad that you brought this chart up here because, Jonathan, this is the type of chart that I love to put positions in and hold on to. The reason I say that is because you saw this huge amount of exuberance, and now we're seeing this cup pattern form. And this cup right here is most likely going to start seeing its right side form over the next couple of weeks. And especially a coin like Simple Token that's been around, it's a legacy coin, it's a coin that has a community already. In my opinion, knowing that we're at these lower RSI levels, you can see we just in this case have not yet seen overbought levels, and we've been maintaining these moving averages. And not only that, being the fact that we're below this EMA, in my opinion, the easiest way to determine when this coin is going to start going up is to watch as soon as we bounce on top of this EMA. You can see we saw ourselves below this EMA for quite some time, and then as soon as we started to jump above that EMA, we saw this exuberant rally, which resulted in profits of up to 70%. So if you want to take advantage of these type of rallies, in this case, it would be easy to just watch the EMA, the exponential moving average, and that's pretty much the way I like to use the EMA. And as soon as this jumps above the EMA, it's most likely going to start forming that right-hand side of the cup. And it's very plausible for this to happen. I remember where EOS was forming this type of pattern before it saw that huge exuberance on this right-hand side. So eventually, these coins typically will go up. And knowing that we're seeing a little bit of an increase in volume here, I think that this is a chart that looks really good, at least in this one-day perspective. And something that I think a lot of traders are undervaluing or underutilizing is the weekly charts. Understand that the weekly charts didn't really play a part in the beginning of this crypto cycle around December because a lot of these cryptocurrencies were so new. But now that weeks have went by, the weekly chart is becoming a chart that I'm looking at, and I think that more and more people should start looking at. Like, for example, if you were to pull up the Bitcoin USD chart, you can see we see some obvious patterns here. We bounced off this 50-day or this 50-week moving average, and not only that, we're heading back towards that 50-week moving average right now. And maybe the 50-week moving average is where we're going to see that little rally that we're expecting. So in my opinion, using the weekly chart now is a very important and underutilized tool that each and every one of you can start utilizing. Investors of Crypto just donated and said, "You are the best." Thank you, brother. So I don't want to keep this live stream for too long. I wanted to just give you guys those 3 tips just so you guys have an idea of what I'm doing in this market, how I'm properly allocating my assets. And then if you were to ask me what projects, I would refer you to our Discord. We're posting all of the projects that we're bullish on Discord. And not only that, over these live streams, we've talked about many different projects. And I think that there's just enough information out there for you guys to know what projects I'm pretty bullish on. But I will definitely tell you, EOS, in my opinion, is the project right now that I'm looking to get some big holdings in prior to the mainnet launch. Because I think once that mainnet launches, this thing is just on the beginning of its parabolic run-up that's soon to come. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this live stream. I really appreciate all of you guys tuning in. Once again, if you enjoyed this, like this video and subscribe to our channel for our daily updates. And Chris Koss says, "Naeem, what happened to the bulls?" The bulls are still there, brother. The bulls are there. The institutions are shaking those bags, getting rid of those weak hands before putting in their money. So just like most institutions like to invest, they want to get in at the bottom. So Gerald says, consensus didn't raise prices in previous years. Go check. It wasn't an attributed factor. Well, it did raise prices over time. It actually, in the past, consensus, it was a time in which Bitcoin saw a retracement and then a consolidation period where it went horizontal for a couple of weeks before it saw its rally. So we're most likely to see a very similar pattern this time around, because it's actually done that for the past 3 consensuses that have occurred. But understand, this consensus event was a lot larger than most consensuses. Usually consensus, the last one was about 2,000 people. This one was over 8,000. So I think we're going to see an exponential reaction in the market versus what we saw in the past. So somebody says, thoughts on LTC? It's undervalued with Lightning and Gemini. Good question. Let's check out LTC really quick before we head off, because LTC has been consolidating quite well, in my opinion. I would say that, and it's something that I've been talking about in the past, you see this EMA here. In my opinion, what we want to do here with this EMA is go above this EMA in order to confirm that LTC is going to start its bullish rally. If we pull up another chart here just to get an idea of this 50-day, you can see once we consolidate that 50-day, in my opinion, like we saw in the past, this 50-day acted as an area in which Litecoin saw a huge exuberant rally from. So I would say wait for it to consolidate back down to that 50-day, and then we'll go from there. So hopefully that has helped out. Thank you all for tuning in. And like I said, until our next one, that's it. Snipers out. I'll see y'all on Discord. Cheers, Gerald. Take care, Frederick. You're very welcome. Take care, Adam. Take care, Johan. You're very welcome. Take care, Bart. All right, Jose. Julie Franklin in the house. Take care, Tom. Luke said snipers out. Yes. I'm sorry. So this was a 50-week moving average. So we're waiting for the 50-week moving average, not the 50-day. Hunted said we love you. Love you too. All right, take care, guys. Snipers out.